नमस्कार। आज मैं फिर से आया हूँ प्रखर के पॉडकास्ट की क्लिप को लेकर के। दिस क्लिप ऑल्सो सजेस्टेड बाय वन ऑफ माई सब्सक्राइबर्स बट नॉट फॉर द रीजंस दैट यू वुड इमेजिन। दिस इज अ कॉन्वर्सेशन बिटवीन तहसीन पूनावाला एंड प्रखर एंड द टाइटल ऑफ द वीडियो is BJP becoming dictatorial by Tehseen Poonawalla. Now Tehseen Poonawalla is a political analyst, but we are already aware about his inclination towards the Congress. So he takes a very critical stance against the BJP. So let's see what the discussion is going to be about. My earlier clips were, as one would say, pro-right. So this would be pro-left. So let's start without wasting any time. I'll give link to the original video in the description. Go and check it out. Give it a thumbs up. Come back and react with me. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's start.
Let me get this straight. You were saying that the UPA 1 and 2 have done better economically than the last two sessions, the last two last 10 years under the BJP. Is that accurate?
I'm saying they did very well.
Okay.
And I also say that these last 10 years, to an extent, have been a missed opportunity. India could have done much better on the momentum from UPA 1, UPA 2.
Okay.
I'm not saying India didn't do well. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. Who can I credit? I have to credit the Prime Minister.
Right.
Of course, he did a good job.
Right.
But there are opportunities where we failed in.
Right.
Some of them being in future, in Web 3.0, we have no roadmap.
Some wise people say whatever you say before but does it actually count? So just notice what he says after the but.
Fintech AI, we have no roadmap. All your fintechs today, AI fintechs are being registered in Dubai and Singapore. Everyone.
Right.
Not one is being registered here. You now have the startup winter. Now you can see it's a global problem. Indians are facing a massive problem as well. So you don't have an issue. Your manufacturing is not up to the mark.
Well, no one can say that startups में India is lagging because recently so many startups have come up that India is like top leading country which has the highest number of unicorns. So I don't think people can actually criticize on that. And in addition to that, there has been a very large boom in micro businesses. That is, the government is providing loans to people to start their own businesses so that they can in turn generate employment for the other people who will be employed in those businesses. So in terms of business and startups, I think India has the best climate ever in like right now as compared to its history. Also, if you look at the ease of doing business index, it has gone up in the sense that India used to rank way below, like in 100 or something. Now it has reduced to like 60s or something. So that is also a good sign, which means that the rules by the government, the procedures that a company has to follow in order to do business in our country has reduced, and it has become easier to invest in India. So if you take all of these things into consideration, then I would say that this criticism is not valid, and UP itself has become a very business-friendly place right now. It has risen in the ease of doing business index within the states. So go and check it out. Check out both the rankings on Wikipedia or whatever source you refer to. You'll know what I'm talking about.
After COVID, manufacturing shifted to Vietnam. It hasn't shifted to India.
Yes.
Yeah, the one odd Apple factory you may tom-tom about, that also came 2013 when Congress was there. Let's be honest. And I'm not running that down. Of course, there's been assembly of mobiles. I'm not running the achievements. Nobody is 100% bad.
Right.
Of course, this government has done some amount of good.
Right.
Has it done enough? No, it hasn't. It could have done a lot more. And let me tell you one thing. Your GDP is going to grow on your service industry, correct? Your service industry is going to be your future. If you want people to get out of agriculture as landless laborers and come into the cities or into their villages, what are the youngsters going to do? They're going to start spas, they're going to start gyms, they're going to start restaurants, they're going to start bars, they're going to start, various service industries or something related to IT, a podcast channel.
Not necessarily. They could go to manufacturing.
If you moral police people, if your government gets too intrusive, if you make laws that means businessmen can go into jail for bona fide mistakes, your service industry will not grow. Some of your ED laws are terrible for businessmen. If I were to put a gun on your head and say, if you make a mistake in this podcast, you go in jail, because even copyright is under ED today, you will never grow. You'll always be under pressure.
Wow, I am already feeling it.
Yeah, I'm serious about it. What is our policy for Web 3.0? We have the highest internet shutdown in the world, more than Ukraine, which is facing a war. How do you become the Web 3.0 destination for the world like we were for Web 2.0 if you don't have a policy on that? How can, whenever government wants shut down internet? So I think these are some of the things that we need to address very, very seriously as a country. You can't have a government that's so intrusive. Uttarakhand under that UCC,
Right.
which
Let me briefly explain about the service or agricultural industry that you mentioned. The GDP of the country, of any country, is the sum of its three sectors. What are those? First is the primary sector or the agricultural sector. Second is the industry sector, manufacturing sector, or the secondary sector. And the third is the service sector or the tertiary sector. Now, agriculture sector is where the primary goods are produced, which are then used in the manufacturing sector. And service sector is something which facilitates both the primary and the secondary sectors. Now, the GDP is the sum of the revenue generated by all three sectors. So, the sign of a developing nation is that the share in the GDP of the primary sector reduces and it grows in the tertiary sector. Now, as a country moves from developing to developed, first the agricultural sector starts shrinking, the industrial sector starts growing, and after that, the industrial sector also shrinks, and there is a large boom in the service sector. Now, if you look at America and the other countries in the West who are considered developed, you would notice that the service sector is largely where the GDP comes from. Why? Because there is hardly any agriculture done by the people. Now, agriculture is done, there is no mistake about it, but it is done by large landowners, not like India, where a lot of population works as landless laborers in the lands of other bigger people. So that is there, and the manufacturing sector is shipped overseas to other developing nations like Vietnam, India, or China. Now that is the reflection on the GDP. Now, if you look at the recent trends in India, experts are saying that India is altogether skipping the intermediary step in which the industrial sector grows. Now we are moving directly from the agriculture to the service sector, which is a good sign supposedly, because as a developing country we should be doing this. But we are missing the intermediate step, that is the growth of the industrial sector. Now what would that indicate is something for experts to decide and for us to see. But let's hope that it is a good sign.
to an extent I support UCC. They now said you have to register who you're living in it. What the hell? So
Yeah.
is a police guy going to come into my bedroom and check who is with who?
Well,
And it's compulsory. You can say, look, if you want to be in a live-in, register.
Right.
It should be voluntary. Now say, okay, if you're below 21, we'll inform your parents. Who the hell is the government?
Yeah, man.
Now,
that part I do not like. Yeah.
So now think about it. Say there's a young podcaster, 19, 20, 21, 22. He's chilling in Uttarakhand. He wants to work from Uttarakhand. He wants to get into a relationship, maybe, live a casual life.
Right.
Now, he's going to be under police pressure if he's living with his friends. What if you're living in but not in a sexual relationship?
Right.
What if you're in a polygamous relationship as a guy or a girl, but you don't want to commit and both couples are open to it?
Right.
Why is the police entering your bedroom?
Well, I think the polygamy issue is a little bit of a straw man because that's very, very rare. But I think
What I would like to know is, were these issues raised in the Legislative Assembly when this bill was passed or not? Because as contemporary people, we can agree with him. We can say, okay, all right, live-in should not be such a big deal. People should be allowed to live whoever they want as long as they're consenting adults. But masses at large would not say the same. And that is where the Congress misses the pulse of the people. They tend to overlook the opinion or the mood of the people as to what they're thinking, and tend to insert their own liberal, hyper-liberal thoughts upon a population which is basically very overly religious or maybe conservative. So that is the point that Congress people should be noting, that you should move with the mood of the people and not insert your high moral or liberal whatever standards you think you have.
I'm talking about marriage.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about open relationships.
Even open relationships.
Youngsters.
Yeah.
They're not married and perhaps they don't want to get married because they want to just be with different people.
Right.
Why should the police get in?
I think, fundamentally the fact that my sex life is to be policed in any way by the state is just horrible and horrendous. And it's a starting of a very bad situation that we've seen with Islamic countries time and again.
Iran, Saudi Arabia,
Even Pakistan. To that extent, right.
Now, add to this the fact that they're moral policing what you eat.
Right.
Dude, the government's in your bedroom, the government's in your kitchen. What the hell? And these are cops. And how do you know that these, let's say it's a kosher live-in relationship.
Right.
I don't want to offend anybody, so Hindu guy, Muslim girl.
Right.
Let's make
Nobody's
it.
offended.
No one's
Nobody's
with
offended
that.
by this.
Okay?
Right. Huh?
Now, how do you know that? And you're going to inform the parents. Why? And now, how do you know that data is not going to be, you have no data protection laws, not going to be leaked to those vigilante groups, Muslim vigilante groups, Hindu vigilante groups to attack people?
Right.
They're going to be at your bedroom?
Right.
Why would you have something like this that makes you open to threats? What if it's two people from different castes?
Fair point.
And how do you know that this doesn't go to vigilante groups?
And almost all things of this nature are prone to fanaticism. Because eventually the
100%.
loudest voice is the fanatical voice and people align with the fanatics. People don't understand the slippery slope argument in politics with this kind of stuff is super real.
Absolutely.
So I'm with you on that. But is your criticism socio-cultural in the sense that there's a lack of freedom that's being developed through cultural means and then being pushed into laws? Or is your criticism more economic?
Both.
Both.
Both of it.
Which one is more primary? Or which one do you think should Congress take up?
Both. But without cultural freedom, without democratic freedom, you cannot have economic prosperity. It's impossible. The most prosperous nations in the world are democratic nations. Period.
Well, China.
Well, China's collapsing now, and we know lack of transparency. We now know what's happened with their real estate sector. We now know their GDP is collapsing. Ultimately, dictatorial countries, lack of
Is that true? Is China's GDP collapsing? If you guys know more about it, then please tell me in the comments.
democratic countries will always collapse. Only democracies survive in the long run.
Well, I don't know who I was talking to, but I think two of the top 5 countries economically are Russia and China, and neither of them are democratic.
True.
So,
But I agree with that. But look at the Chinese economy today. And I am telling you, what Indians admired about the Chinese economy, only as long as 10 years ago, the strong armamenship, the lack of the government will to do what it wants, the lack of public consent needed. Today, with all of that, what is collapsing fastest in China? One, their educom and the IT industry. Second, their real estate industry. The two things Indians admired most is completely collapsing. Ultimately, which dictatorial country has survived over a long term? Over that, every democratic country, of course they go through the ups and downs. They recover because everything is transparent in public domain. Without democracy, you cannot have progress. Let me ask people who love strong leaders and dictatorial, how many people will shift permanently to China or Russia? And how many will shift to America? Why do Indians want to make a beeline for America? Why London? Why do other countries?
Right.
Why are they making a beeline for China and Russia? Because ultimately here you want a strong man, here you want the government to rule, but you want to go to America. The most number of Indians have given up their passports in the last 10 years. Why? The most number of Indians are trying to run away from India to go to which country? The report came out recently.
United States? Yeah.
Why? If everything is so good here, why do you want to go there? How many people do you know of who've given up American citizenship and become Indian citizens? You might know one odd case.
Come on. Immigration has been happening since, as we can imagine. So that is not an argument. Okay? In last 10 years, people emigrated to America if everything is all right here. You should be comparing what happened, what was the immigration status in while the UPA was in charge and now the BJP. But even though that is not a reflection of how the country is, maybe because in the recent times the world has become largely a global village. If there is more economic prosperity, then people will go to abroad for studying or whatever reasons. So it could be because people have more money, people have more access to information, and people just have become more ambitious. So it could be either of those things. As long as we don't have any empirical data as to why people are doing it, we should not be drawing any conclusions.
Yeah.
Not in numbers. So the one odd case is not an exception. Because I know when this podcast comes out, I'll have one tweet saying, "Inhone chhod diya." That's one odd. That's fine.
Yeah, right.
The exception, I'm not talking exception. The rule is Indians want to go there.
Right.
If we are the 5th largest economy in the world, which we are, and I'm proud of it, why do we want to go there? Because we are not the 5th largest per capita wise. So better growth is there, more freedom is there. Why are youngsters leaving India today if everything is so good? Why are they even registering in other countries? And I said this on another podcast, and I'm saying this today. Most people who have more than 70-80 crores in liquidity are buying a house in Dubai. Come with me to Dubai.
No, 100%.
Come
That's
with me to Dubai.
super true. Yeah.
Everyone from Delhi will be there. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you want one foot in Dubai?
Yeah, why?
Because
I thought it's a real estate opportunity.
real estate opportunity, 2 hours away from India.
Right.
You get a golden visa. If something happens here, you can be in Dubai.
It's like the best city in India is Dubai. That's
The
how
best
I
city
said.
in India is Dubai. It's the best. It's a better version of Delhi and Mumbai today.
Yes.
A cleaner version.
Agreed.
And you get everything there.
And even though that is not a democratically free country.
That's not a democratically free country, but people have put their option there.
Right.
Maybe that's an investing option. अभी खरीद लो, आगे चल के इसकी बहुत ज़्यादा prices बढ़ेंगे तो बेच देंगे. Where is the data to show that they want to live there actually? It could be like a business thing.
They've just put one option there because you can't get a citizenship there. But those who can give up their citizenship are going to democratic countries. That is the problem.
See, you said a lot of things, and let me be very clear, right? I've seen a tendency to fall towards authoritarianism in sort of this new political upsurge, this pro-BJP upsurge, and not just pro-BJP, but in general. Jo abhi naya youth, the now 18-year-olds, right? 10 years younger than me, I've seen some of that authoritarian tendency. Sometimes on Twitter, I'll see stuff like, we need censorship on Instagram kind of nonsense, and I'm like, do you know what you're starting? So I want to make it very clear, I'm very pro-democracy and I'm very pro-transparency. I think a self-respecting man cannot desire somebody else to rule over them.
Correct.
Right. However, the idea that democracy is the best form of government is something I've come to intellectually question. And so you said something to the effect of ki democratic countries live the longest. The longest living democratic country is either France, which had an interruption right after its first democratic spell, or America, which is 1756.
1756.
So that's 250, 270 years. There were monarchic countries that lived for way longer.
True.
Right? So like to say that democracy sort of ensures the longest, it's the most self-respecting regime, right? Like I feel the best in a very free country. And I also feel Indians who have this kind of envy towards democracy do not truly understand that when they're sitting in Los Angeles doing whatever the fuck they want.
Exactly.
And nobody comes to say, "Kyun kar raha hai saale ye?"
Exactly.
It is a completely novel feeling. This is what Indians get hooked to when they go to America and Canada.
True.
Right? And there are problems in US and Canada, uncomparable. It's not the same.
Exactly.
It's not the same. Right? The second thing you said is, why don't Indians go to
But
Russia?
just a correction.
Yeah.
I didn't say the longest living countries. I said the longest economic surviving countries.
Fair.
And over 200 years, both America and France, with whatever interruptions they've had economically, have prospered. Democratic countries bring more people out of poverty than dictatorial countries.
Sure.
Dictatorial countries, even when, let's say India, the Mughal rule, which everyone loves to bash, and I also don't, I'm not a fan of it.
Right.
Where our GDP was 25% of the world, we had a lot of poverty. Dictatorial countries never bring people out of poverty. China has a lot of poverty. North Korea has a lot of poverty. Syria has a lot of poverty. Afghanistan has a lot of poverty. Whether they progress or no, they may progress, but the poverty remains.
Right.
Democratic countries bring masses of people out of poverty. And that is true in 200 years of America and France, England and other democratic countries.
Also, one more point I would like to add. I agree with Tehseen here that democratic countries have prospered the longest. Prakhar pointed out that there were monarchies who have survived even longer than that. But it's not necessarily true that they have prospered throughout. Sometimes what happens, कोई अच्छा राजा आ जाता है तो फिर उसके regime में they prosper, and as soon as that king goes away, then the monarchy falls. It survives, but it doesn't thrive, is my point. But that is not necessarily true with America and France. They have survived and thrived from the very beginning, and they have continued to do so. Just because they, maybe because they had democracy. I cannot say it is only because of democracy. So that could be it.
If I were to do a quick statistical, heuristical, like jaldi ek analysis karu main, I think the number of people brought out of poverty in the first 30 years, which is 47 to 77, let's say, before Morarji Desai came into power, which is all Congress. And then if I did the last 10 years, I think the math would dictate that more people were brought out of poverty in the last 10 years than the first 30.
Last 20 years.
Last 20 years.
Manmohan Singh got more people out of poverty than Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi says 24 crore people. But that's because the economic reforms took place. So, of course, it's not just democracy. You can't be a closed economy. You have to be a global economy.
Sure.
So, that is the criteria.
Liberal economy is one of the principles of a democracy. Democracy just, what does democracy say? It says that there should be, the liberal ideas should be upheld. So basically the economy should be liberal as well.
Yeah, both America and France are global economies. Of course, you have to be a global economy.
You have to export.
You have to export, you have to allow people in, you have to allow talent and all of that. You have to be an open country. That happened after 91. So then if you break it down, more people came out of poverty post-91 than pre-91.
Sure.
And post-91, most of it was Congress, perhaps even the Gandhis. That's not the issue that we're talking about. That I agree with. So we're talking about democracy. But economic model, you have to be an open country. In fact, India...
हाँ तो 91 से पहले क्यों नहीं लिबरलाइज किया था इतने सालों तक why were we a closed economy ये तो बताइए.
India should be more open right now to get more people faster out of poverty. This 24 crores that Prime Minister Modi's government says it got out of poverty is also disputable. But I give them credit. 24 करोड़ नहीं तो 18 करोड़ 17 करोड़ ठीक है I am not going to sit on your podcast and say the prime minister did nothing. Of course people are coming out of poverty. Of course there is some amount of growth. How else can you be the fifth largest? You've gone from 11 to 5.
Right.
So there is growth.
Yes.
That growth will trickle down. So if you have a podcast studio, you will give a job to 3 people.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
So there, but I'm saying the pace has slowed down. The pace was better at Manmohan Singh's time.
Guys,
A lot can be stipulated and a lot can be argued upon on what he said. I agree about the democracy part, just like I mentioned, but I disagree with some of the things. The economic growth in the Modi regime has happened only because there was a momentum generated by the UPA. My question is, why did we wait for so long after independence to liberalize the economy? Now, if you read NCRT, you will see that they give a reason for this, and they say कि कोई भी country जब independent होती है, at the for the first few years, the economy remains largely closed क्योंकि वो चाहती है कि उसकी खुद की industries grow करें. No, that is a reason given by NCRT. But if you look at it, we got independence in 1947, and we had the constitution from 1950s. So we waited for 40 years to liberalize the economy. And why is it that? Why did we do that? Were we following on the footsteps of Russia to become a communist country, and that is why the socialist word was inserted in the constitution? Were we trying to become socialist at first? But then we were at the brink of bankruptcy. If you look it up, when the economy was liberalized in 91 under the guidance of Dr. Manmohan Singh himself, it was when India was at the verge of bankruptcy. So we had no other choice but to liberalize the economy. So the question we should be asking कि कांग्रेस ने इतना देर तक वेट क्यों किया to liberalize the economy? And I guess that's it. There is not a lot to talk about in this video because we did not get presented with any empirical data. We were talking about सारी चीजें ऊपर से कि migration हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है, वो हो रहा है. But it's interesting to listen to Tehseen anyway. So thank you for being here till the very end. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.